Hey everybody, it's Katie from Bobby Hair Studio. Thanks for coming back today. Sorry if I sound a little stuffed up. I do have allergies and they're pretty bad. But today what we're doing is we're turning this like highlighty, muddy pink color with orange ends into more of a pastel solid bleach out. And this is a color correction, so it's not fully done. But yeah, before we start, please remember to follow us on our socials, Instagram and TikTok. We're Bobby Hair Studio. And if you subscribe and like, then it's helping us continue to provide free hair education on YouTube, and it really supports this channel. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by wetting down the hair because we're gonna be putting K18 on this hair. And I'm gonna go through the full process of what we're doing and why we're doing it and why this client wants this change. And I'm just gonna talk about that while you're watching me do her highlights, because what we've got here is, if you look closely, you can see brown lowlights everywhere in her hair. You can see the little pink highlights. She has weirdly damaged, like yellowy, orangey ends. There's her roots. It's kind of a mess everywhere. And what she wants is to be solidly platinum with a pastel pink over top. So I've put the K18 in and now I'm sectioning her hair off. And what we're gonna start off with is our first part of our service. I'm going to be starting by taking super thin sections and essentially trying to pick out these tiny baby lowlights, which is her natural hair was left out of foils wherever she went last. And so they need to be lightened first before we do the roots and before we pull all the old darker pink out of her hair. Now, what makes this actually a really difficult process is the fact that her level 7 natural color is the same level as her level 7 pink color that's in her hair. It's really difficult to distinguish between these two colors. As you can see, I'm like hunching over, I'm looking super close, and I'm trying to make sure not to put full strength lightener over top of those pink areas, because what I'm going to be doing later is putting lightener over the whole thing to pull out her old pink tone, and so I can fully tone it to more of a pastel-y pink. Again, this is a crazy color correction. There's a lot of ways you can do color corrections. This is just how I chose to do this one. And the reason being is because I wanted to make sure that I maintain the health of her hair utmost and like first of all. So that is why I used K18. That's why her hair looks a little bit wet, because the K18 is in there. It did its job. She had like no breakage. Her hair felt amazing at the end of the service. And it's not all the way perfect. This is a color correction, not a color perfection, but it is a really big step towards where we want to go by the end of this, because we want to be a soft, solid, bubblegum, cotton candy pink. After about an hour and a half of foiling, I've checked the backside here, and you can see that it's lightening up pretty well, but some of those areas are still a little bit of a peachy or darker pink, so I still want to let them process for a little bit before I start taking them out. So this side was put in first, and what I'm doing is I'm scraping away any of the lightener, and if I need to refresh with any areas, I take some lightener in the bowl and put it through the ends, but I don't really need to be doing too much of that. And I just work my way through the areas that I started with first, see if they're light enough to scrape away the product, and then I continue on with the sides and the front for her foiling. And it looks super weird actually right now when I'm combing it out, but you can actually see that there is a level of brightness that we're going to be achieving that's already lighter. So we're already getting a lot closer to our end goal right now. If you're, a hairdresser, you can kind of see that this pink area has already been lifted to probably level 8.5 or a 9. The low lights are being lifted to a 9, 10. So there's going to be different shades of pink all over, but it's going to be a lot closer to what she wants. And I know this is kind of a crazy thing to be doing a 9-10 hour service just to take from highlights to bleach out, but this is what it entails when you have little baby lights or teeny tiny highlights and they're the same level as the color you already have. You have to be careful about the previous bleaching in the hair and the damage that you can cause by just bleaching over the whole thing. Now, I know that I could have just bleached over the whole thing and that would have been totally fine, but she would have gotten breakage, and I didn't want to have breakage here, and neither did she. She'd rather go for the longer process and be a little healthier so that we can achieve some health and some length and the color she wants. So this is just more of the same on the sides, me going in and trying to find any areas that need to be lightened and pulling out any little areas that are too light to be fully lightened over in the foil. And also I should just talk about really quickly my formula. What I did here was I used Blonde Me and I mixed 7 and 20 volume together to make more of like a 15 volume. Once I finished foiling the sides and the top, I flipped over her back foils that were up on the crown, up on top to help to insulate, keep everything warm, and process everything much quicker, because what I'm doing now is I'm pulling out some of the foils that we're still processing in the back, just doing everything bit by bit, only waiting till the foils are ready before I pull them out. I dry them off with a towel or spray them with a little bit of water to deactivate the bleach, and just let it sit there while the rest catches up. Once that's all done and everything's caught up, I took her to the sink and I washed her out, and then I applied Kate the mask, which is the part 2, brought her back to the chair, and now we're trying to dry up her roots because we're going to be going in for her root bleaching and trying to get any of the low lights that are left over. So this is part 2. So get ready for this next part. So now that the roots are dry, I am separating her into about 4 quadrants, and I'm taking little pieces of cotton. I could have alternatively also done this with little tiny slices of foil and laid them in between, which would actually probably been a little bit neater, but the cotton is fine too. And I'm just trying to cover everything that's her natural level 7. I'm trying to make sure they don't overlap too much, and the cotton is helping to prevent any overlapping, as you'll see right here. I'm coating onto her roots, and I'm just painting downwards to catch any of those brown areas and to not really go over any of the blonde. And then this is going to lighten up her root area and get it to match everything else. What I am really happy with in this service is how I was able to maintain the lightness of her pink tone, even though we do end up with a lot of different tones. Of course, you know, the after was taken at night and I had to use a ring light. So of course, ring lights make all of like the difference show up even more. Like if you've ever taken photos with ring lights of the after photos of your hair, anything that's like a slight tone difference, like you're gonna see that way more because of the ring light. But what I'm really happy with here is that we managed to get basically every hair on her head to a light soft pink color, even though there's variations of the tones in pink. What I'm also doing here is I'm making sure to start from the bottom. If you need a little bit of bleach root help with your applications, I do have other videos on how to do bleach root, but I'm starting with the bottom because that's usually the darkest, thickest, healthiest hair, and I'm going from one side to the other to work my way all the way up to the crown of her head so that the full bottom can be taken out all at the same time if it needs to be, rather than if I need to really quickly rinse out a section, I'm not rinsing out quadrants, I'm rinsing out the bottom half before I get to the top. So it's easier to hold away from the water. I'm not going to get any issues, and that's why I do this way. Now that these undersections have completed with their processing, I'm just sticking my rat tail comb in there to pull out all the cotton all at once. It's really satisfying to watch. I love that part. And then what I'm doing is I am going to be taking another mixture of lightener. I'm pretty sure I have like a clay and 7 volume lightener. It's very gentle, but it's going to pull out the rest of her pink tones in her hair. It basically just provides a really gentle bump in color and a shift. And I'm applying this to each section as it's done its roots, because then I can squeegee down a little bit of that bleach from the roots, mix it in with the more gentle formula, and then you get kind of a good blend of both. And I am doing the back separate from the front today because I know that her hair is going to process super quick, and I don't want to risk having the back be super light and the front be super orangey. This is just something that I'm doing to make sure that we have the best result possible. And I'm basically twisting the hair into some very soft twists. I know it looks kind of aggressive, but it's very soft twists, just to make sure that the color stays moisturized so that it can keep processing. And here I'm just coating the hair to make sure it all lifts so nicely together. Then when that was done, we rinsed it out and started with the front, and here is what it looks like. I had to touch over a couple of those areas that were a little bit orangey again, so as the front is processing, they're doing it too. Now we've pre-toned at the sink. I've used Fanola Purple and Blue shampoo to kind of pull it a little tiny extra bit of that orange and yellow tone, and she's lifted really beautiful. I'm very proud of this result considering what she came in with. This is a lot more even, and I honestly can say I wish she was going blonde because this would have been a really beautiful blonde. However, we chose to go the challenging route and do a fashion color in a pastel tone, which if you've ever done hair before, you know that that's one of the most challenging colors to do in a really even way. So I am pre-toning her with Schwarzkopf Vibrance 9.1, 9.5, 1.9, and 6 volume. I'm just trying to use as much ash and keep her as light as possible to cancel out that yellow, because there is a bit of yellow in these light pink colors. I don't want her to look peachy, I want it to look pink. So a pre-tone is necessary. A pre-tone also helps to balance out the canvas so you don't take too hot in some areas or too porous in other areas. So this is what her hair looks like after the pre-tone. It's still wet, but it's so much better now. Like, look at how pretty the blonde could have been. And her color is Arctic Fox Rosé Chroma ID Clear by Schwarzkopf. And then I'm adding a little bit of Cupid in here for a little bit of that extra pinky tone because I don't think that the Rosé and Clear will fully cover her. And then I'm applying it to her roots first. And with these colors, you need to just apply them, let them sit. Don't try to mix them around too much. Wherever you get applied first is just where it's gonna suck up entirely into the hair. So we would rather have a more of a ombre look with a slightly deeper root than to have a patchy color just by slapping the color everywhere. With these, fashion colors, you need to be very careful about how you're applying them. You need to put them on super, super saturated. You need to be very careful because if you just slap them on anywhere, they're just gonna take full potency wherever you slap them, which that could be in the middle of the strand. And you get this big chunk of really vibrant color in the middle and it doesn't take evenly anywhere. It looks all patchy. You don't wanna do that. So once we did the roots, we put it on everywhere else. She's getting a little bit of a shadowy root pink, which is actually really, really pretty. And we're very happy with that. And before you see the final result, we're gonna do our favorite part, 2 stars and a wish. If you're new here, 2 stars and a wish is a critique that I do on myself. It's a positive critique. There's no I hate it or sucked at language. It's constructive criticism only. I always do 2 stars, no less, 1 wish, no more. And it has to be said out loud or to a mentor to discuss and to learn new techniques that will help to improve my skills. And I don't just state what, but I also state why and how, so I can really analyze how I can do better next time. This has been something I've been doing for myself since I first started hair, and I really, really recommend that you do it for yourself in your career as well, even if you're not a hairdresser. It's awesome. So now we're gonna start with my star. My first star is the overall result was really healthy. Her hair felt great, and I'm really, really happy that I didn't get any breakage in her hair at all today. Of course, that's because of my method, K18, and the products that I used. I was very gentle and I really took my time, so I'm proud of that. My second star is my formulation for my pre-tone and my pink color. I'm really happy with those as well. And my wish is that maybe I would have, I don't know. I honestly don't know. The ends are still really yellow, but she had a weird color in there before, and you can't quite see the end result in its true form. I think it's really, really beautiful, but I wish that I had put on a little bit more ash tones into her end toner so that it would help to combat those yellow tones. Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bobby Hair Studio. Thank you guys. Join us for the next one.